so in this section we're going to talk about everything that you kind of need in your kitchen. Now what I'm going to show you here is going to be the main tools that you're going to need to kind of get started, and there's going to be other things that you're going to need along the way as well when we're doing certain things like sugar flowers, but I will mention that in the section when we're making certain things. So let's start off with the kind of basics of what you're going to need to have in your kitchen if you're serious about cake decorating. So first of all, let's start off with the baking element. Now get yourself a good pair of scales, okay? I've seen a lot of people, they have the manual scales. Get yourself digital scales. Now these are really, really good because you're going to make sure that everything is going to be really accurate. The ones I've got here are just Salter scales, and you can buy them from Amazon. It comes with a nice big bowl as well, which is great, and it converts from mils, kgs, pounds, grams, ounces, which is really, really good. So whatever conversion you need, that will just set it to that conversion. So I like to have spatulas to hand. Now, when you're going to get them, try and get ones that are heat resistant as well, because if you're going to be making things like Swiss meringue buttercream, it's always good to have heat resistant spatulas. I always like to have a jug to hand. Now this is a Pyrex jug. Although it has got the measurements on the side, I don't really use it for the measurements, but what I do is I like to crack my eggs into this before they go into the cake batter. So it might sound obvious, you know, you can just break them into a bowl or whatever, but just make sure that you've got something with a point so it's easier to pour your eggs into your stand mixer or to your bowl, and it just saves a lot of mess, and you know, you can pour the eggs into your batter nicely. So just like a Pyrex jug, which is great. Now in terms of baking, so I often get the question, do I need to have a stand mixer or can I use a handheld whisk? So when I started out, I used to use my handheld whisk, and I used it for many years. I probably used it for about 5 years before I got a stand mixer. The one that I actually used to use was this one here called the Kenwood. And this served me for many years. It's durable, it's great, it's brilliant. You get different attachments to it as well, so which is absolutely fine to use one of these. Of course, using a stand mixer is a lot easier. So you don't need to stand there, and obviously you can go away and do other things with the stand mixer. So let me just show you my stand mixer that I've got. So this is my KitchenAid here. This is the KitchenAid Artisan, and it is absolutely amazing. It's got different settings on it as well. So a 0 to a 10. It's got a nice big bowl as well. So this is the one that I use all the time for my baking. Now, with regards to the KitchenAid, they can be a little bit costly, a little bit expensive. There are other ones which I've heard really, really good things about, which is the Kenwood. I haven't used it, but just check out the reviews. I have heard some really good things about that, and they're not as pricey as a KitchenAid. So, you know, have a look and see what your price range is and what your budget is. Of course, you know, if you're just starting out, you might just want to use your handheld whisk at the beginning and then move on to a stand mixer later on. So that's the baking element. So let's go on to the decorating side and what you would potentially need for your decorating of your cakes. And again, this is going to be kind of the basic level of things that you would need. There may be other things later on, but we can discuss those in the further tutorials when we do them. So the first thing I've got is a turntable. Now there's a couple of turntables which I've had, and I'm going to show you both of them. Now there's two here. One is the one that I used for many years before I moved on to a better turntable. This one is by PME. This one was amazing, and again I use this for many, many years. It's really good because it doesn't move around too much and it's non-slip, and these are relatively cheap. They're about £14, so they're not overly expensive. So you could start off by using something like this. I then went on to the Ateco, which is brilliant, especially for tiered cakes. So if you're going to be doing like 2-tier cakes or 3-tier cakes, this is very sturdy and durable, and it just moves really, really quickly because it's got a ball bearing action in here, and you can just move it really, really quickly. But again, don't feel like you have to rush out and buy the Ateco straight away. You can use the PME one. This one is about £70 to £80, so it is a little bit more on the pricey side. It's amazing, and if you are going to use this, you're going to just need to put a non-slip mat here. So just buy something non-slip, otherwise your board can sometimes slide around. So this is absolutely brilliant. So moving on to palette knives. Now I use a couple, and I'm quite particular on the type of palette knife that I use. So this is the one that I use here, which is an Ateco palette knife. It's got a model number on here of 1386, and I bought this one from Cake Stuff. And if you just type in Ateco and the palette knife number, it will come up. And the blade size is actually 6 inches and it's about 1 inch in width. This one is amazing. I use this all the time, and I've actually got a few of these. They're not overly expensive. They're probably about £5. So you might just want to get a couple just to keep. I then like to use a offset spatula, which is a small one, just to do the corners of my buttercream cakes, just to bring in and get those sharp edges. So this one's not overly big. It's just a nice small offset palette knife. So if we're going to be doing buttercream cakes, you're going to want a scraper. Now I like to have 2 in my kitchen, and I like to have a metal scraper and also a Perspex acrylic scraper. Now what I would highly advise is, if you're going to be buying these, just make sure that they're tall enough so they sit higher than your cake. Now this particular one is 10 inches, and I think my acrylic one is 12 inches, but you could go for 10, between 10 and 12 is absolutely fine. So just make sure they're not the really short ones. You will need a taller scraper. So what you're probably going to need as well is, if you're doing buttercream cakes, is piping bags, and the disposable ones are probably the best that I found. And these you can just buy from Amazon or eBay. They come in like 50 pack or 100 pack. They're brilliant because you just use them and you chuck them away, and then you don't need to kind of rewash. Which is amazing, and they're relatively cheap as well. So I always get questions as well, what kind of nozzles should I use? Now I've got some nozzles here just to show you, but some that I could recommend are the Wilton nozzles are really good. So the 4B is really good for shell type of piping. You've got the Wilton 2D, which is a really, really nice nozzle, which I will show you a close-up to in a second, and also the Wilton 1M, which is really nice. It's like an open star tip nozzle. So these 3 nozzles are probably some of my most favorite tips. So you've got something similar to this. So you've got these type of nozzles here. That's a really nice nozzle as well, but the Wilton ones are amazing. And that's more like an open star as well. So check out the Wilton nozzles, they're absolutely brilliant. So we've spoken about buttercream cakes and the main kind of things that you're going to need for the buttercream, but let's talk about sugar paste cakes now. So the kind of things that you will need in your kitchen for your sugar paste cakes, let's start off with the rolling pin. Now this is just a white plastic rolling pin, and I often get asked, you know, can you use wooden or metal? I've never used the metal ones, but the wooden ones, they can stick. So just make sure it's one of these white ones here. And this one is approximately 18 or 19 inches. So just make sure it is about that length. I then use a smaller rolling pin as well. And this is just to roll out things like, you know, petals or just small decorations. And this one is about 10 inches long. So 10 to 12 inches is absolutely fine. You just want something nice and small, easy to handle, just to roll out the really small, intricate decorations. I've also got here my smoothers. Now I've got some different types of smoothers. Now these ones are the plastic acrylic ones, which are amazing, and you can buy these from Cake Stuff. Just type in acrylic smoothers and you will just need 2 of these, and these are just when we get our sharp edges. I've also got a plastic smoother, so any plastic smoother is fine, because sometimes I find this can stick on the top. So I just like to use a plastic one as well. And most importantly, the flexi smoothers. So these come in packs of 3 or 4. You can buy them from most cake decorating places. If you just type in flexi smoothers, you will see these, and they come in like pink or clear or blue. So these are absolutely amazing as well. Of course, I've got the beloved Pro Froster. Now, when you're buying the Pro Froster, just make sure it is the official Pro Froster. You want to make sure that it is the actual one, because there are some imitation ones on the market for like £8, but I haven't heard good things about them. So you really want to make sure it is the official Pro Froster. And it has just got the official Pro Froster logo at the back there. The Pro Froster is about £30, so it's not that cheap. But it is probably one of my tools that I couldn't live without in my kitchen. It's absolutely amazing. And we will talk more about this when we go on to doing our ganache cakes further down in the tutorials. I've also got one of these non-stick boards here as well. So you can buy them, again, from most cake decorating places. They're actually called cutting mats. So sugarcraft cutting mats, really, really good. So especially when you're rolling out your decorations, you don't want them to stick. And whenever I'm rolling out fondant on this or sugar paste, it never sticks, and I don't even need to use icing sugar. So this is more for like the smaller, the leaves and things like, and the petals and things like that. So this is really, really handy to have. Another thing that I would highly recommend is a cake leveler. Now this one here is by PME. And it's about 18 inches long. You can get smaller ones, but I would recommend getting an 18-inch one just so you can use it for all different size cakes. These are not expensive at all. They're about £5. And again, further down in the tutorials, I'm going to show you exactly how you need to use this. In your kitchen, I would always recommend that you have a ruler in inches and centimeters. Again, you can buy these from Amazon. It's just because sometimes we need to go in and measure certain things, so it's always handy to have a ruler to hand. Always make sure you have a pair of scissors, very, very important. And these are going to sound so obvious, but just keep them in your cake cupboard because you are going to need to use them from time to time. Something else that we use is Pritt Stick, which is a non-toxic glue, and this is just going to be to put a ribbon around. Also, you just want to make sure you've got scotch tape or sellotape to hand as well. Now, other things that you're going to need to have are paintbrushes. Now, I've got loads of different paintbrushes, but I would recommend that you get paintbrushes of different sizes. So I've got some very thin ones here, which are probably like a 00, a 0 or a 1, because they come in numbers, and those are the thin paintbrushes. And then you've got just some wider ones here as well, just so slightly wider than, you know, just so if you want to do any painting on cake, so you just need a wider brush. And I've also got one here, which is what I use for a bit of dusting, so just a very soft brush here as well. And again, if you go onto cake decorating websites, you'll find a whole range of paintbrushes, and I would just recommend just to have a little mixture of each size. Some other things for your sugar craft as well is these tools. Now these come in sets of 7 or 8. So if you just type into your online store for wherever you're purchasing from, cake decorating tools, these will come up. So it's got things like the ball tool, it's got you know, the cone shape as well, and the pointy tools as well. So you're going to need to have these as well, especially if you want to go onto sugarcraft. So these are highly recommended to have as part of your cake kit. One important thing for me as well is to always have kebab sticks and small cocktail sticks to hand, because from time to time, again, we will use these. And these are easy dowels. So these are dowels. Now, you're going to need these if you're going to be looking to do your 2-tier cakes or your 3-tier cakes or any kind of wedding cakes. Again, these are good to have in stock if you're going to start practicing on your tiered cakes. These are called easy dowels, and these are basically, you cut them and you can just snap them off. But recently I found a really, really cool tool which just snaps off the dowel, so you get a very, very straight, sharp edge. So it saves around messing around with knives and things like that. And this is the tool here. So this is just called a hollow dowel cutter. They're about £3, and I think I found this one on Cake Stuff. So literally all you want to do is you just want to pop the dowel into the cutter, and you just press down, and it snaps off, and you just get a really, really clean cut there, as you can see. So really, really worth having. This is literally something I've only found in the last kind of week, so very, very recent. Up until then I was getting a knife and I was scoring the dowels and then snapping them off, and yeah, it's just a bit of a palaver. So these are really, really handy to have. Now, something you're going to need, especially when it comes to like sugar flowers, is a foam mat. Now these come in round or square, so this is always handy to have if you're going to start making your sugar flowers. And in terms of boards, so what I like to use is I like to use a lot of these white masonette boards. They come in different sizes and they're glossy or matte. So the great thing about these is you can wipe around them if you get things like buttercream or ganache on them. So they're very, very easy to clean. I like to have quite a few of these in stock. Now, it depends on how many orders you have. I would recommend having at least kind of 5 boards, you know, maybe 5 of each size, just so you're stocked up and, you know, you're not rushing out to get boards and boxes when you've got orders. So these are really, really good to have. Now, if you're going to be covering them with sugar paste, you can just use the foil drums, which are these ones, and they're 12 mil in depth. But these ones are absolutely fine if you're going to be covering them with sugar paste. But these drums I actually use for my ganache and my sugar paste cakes as well. So if I'm making like an 8-inch cake, then I would need an 8-inch drum. If I'm making a 6-inch cake, I would need a 6-inch drum like this. And again, I'm going to explain this more when we do our tutorials. So these are always handy to have in stock as well. Now, I often get a question, how do you package up your cakes? Now, I use cellophane, and I will show you how to do this at some point. Now, the cellophane is a roll that I buy from eBay. Now, this is about 1 meter length, and it comes in a 100-meter roll. So as you can see, there's loads here, and this lasts absolutely ages. And this is not overly expensive. They're about £14. So this is always handy to have as well, just to package up your cakes. And also just get some curling ribbon as well, and that's how we actually tie it so it just stays together. So there's going to be more stuff that I'm going to be showing you, and this is going to be things like cutters and, you know, more kind of tools that you're going to need as well. So we will talk about them as we do the tutorials of what other items that you're going to need, because if I was to sit here and go through each and every cutter that you're going to need, you know, we'd probably be here for a very long time. So I just wanted to give you the kind of basics just to get you guys started. Now, again, don't feel like you have to rush out and buy all of this at once. So you could have some of the main items so you're ready, like your handheld whisks, your spatulas, and things like that. But don't bother with things like this if you're not yet ready to start your sugar paste section. So you can buy these things as you go along in your journey, because it can be quite costly as well if you're buying everything at once. So just pace yourself and, you know, do it bit by bit. And that's how I did it. And over the years, I was just buying, you know, little bits and bobs. And if you see my cake cupboards now, they are absolutely full, and I just have literally things wanting to fall out because I've bought so much stuff. And another reason I wanted to tell you the main things to buy is because sometimes we can just trial and error things ourselves, which is what I did. I used to buy so many different things which didn't work, or, you know, I ended up giving them away or chucking them away because I just didn't need them. But this here is kind of like the core items that you're going to need. So, you know, there's no messing around. You know what you need for certain things, and you don't need to waste money and just buy loads of different pieces. So I really, really hope that has helped.